Hello, I'm Adam J. Morgan, and welcome to Late Night Ghost Stories. Joining us this Halloween is Jenny Bolton, Duty Manager of Activities and Events at Shepton Mallet Prison. Hi, Jenny. Lovely. Thank you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
I've been reading up on the history this afternoon, actually. Firstly, though, before we go into the haunted history, could you tell us a little bit about the prison and its background? Has it always been a prison?
So it first opens its doors in 1625, and at that point, it was a really, really tiny prison. It wasn't anything like it looks today. And it was a mixed prison. It held men, women, and children. Everybody was all mixed together. Um, And then, sort of over the years, as time progressed, you get hit the Victorian times, and they needed to expand the prison and make it bigger. So they built the new wings, which are the wings that you would see today if you went and visited. And they knocked down the top level of the older prison and buried the rest. And that became our exercise yard. And they separated the men from the women, so the women had their own wing. And then in 1848, they built another wing because they needed to be able to house more women because a lot more women were committing crimes. So they built a newer wing, which is what we call C wing today. And the last woman ended up leaving in 1918, and after that, it became just your male prison. Over the duration of the Second World War, it became a military prison, specifically for the American military, but then later on for the British military. And it stayed that way up until about the mid-60s, before then just becoming a prison. And stayed that way up until 2001. And in 2001, it became a Category C lifers prison. And that's what it remained as right up until its closure in 2013.
Wow, that is quite an impressive history, and you've obviously memorised that. How did you become so passionate about history? Before the prison and running it.
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I've always had a slight interest in history. When I think about, as a kid, and I just remember at about the age of 8 or something, we made this little contraption to do with ancient Egypt and how they collected water from the Nile. And I remember loving that.
Wow.
And then I really kind of lost interest in history at school. It really wasn't my thing. But visiting places, when schools go off and do the World War cemeteries over in France and Belgium, and then just visiting stately homes and castles and just imagining what it would be like in its heyday. So I've always kind of had that interest in there. And then I just kind of landed at the prison, and I just wanted to know everything about it that I possibly could. So that's really kind of fueled it, for sure.
I can tell the way you're talking and explaining about the history that you're very fond of the place as well.
I really am. It was one of those places. I never intended to get a job there. It wasn't really part of my plans. And then I ended up getting offered just a job as an actor in the escape rooms. And I sort of, like I said, I wanted to know the entire history of the prison. So I also became a tour guide. I've worked on the front desk and sort of ended up coming full circle and ended up becoming the duty manager of events and the activities. So I now sort of run the escape rooms. I'm in charge of them.
Wow. And obviously, being Halloween and everyone waiting for some of the ghostly stuff, please do tell us about the hauntings. What is going on there, Jenny?
Quite a lot. So we have our what I would call our regulars. They're seen kind of semi-regularly at the prison, and they are sort of spirits and hauntings that have been happening since this was an active prison. So these stories have been handed down to us from prison officers who worked there, who might have heard it from other prison officers, and they still go on today. We still get these reports going on, which is absolutely amazing. And then we get the sort of more sort of one-offs as well, where someone will go, "Oh, this happened to me," and I was like, "Okay, well, I've not heard of that happening before here." So we get all sorts. It's amazing. I love hearing about it all. I'll happily talk to the guests all day about it if I was allowed to.
Oh, amazing. So that's really impressive, actually, because in my head, I was thinking it was possibly just visitors coming along, seeing stuff since it's been closed as a prison. But you're saying that ex-prison officers were actually handing down reports.
Yeah, absolutely. I've spoken to prison officers because we get the officers who used to work at the prison, and they'll come in, and generally we'll ask them about their experiences just as a prison officer in the prison, and then obviously we head down the sort of ghostly route and go, right, what do you know about hauntings here? Has anything happened to you? And they'll tell us if anything's happened to them as well. So we're always getting these new stories in from former prison officers of the prison, which is amazing.
So now you've got to tell us a ghost story.
Oh, which one to choose?
There's too many. I can imagine there's too many to pick. Wow. So I'm here. I'll just give you a little something that I read, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I thought I'd ask you anyway, about a white lady.
I thought she might crop up. Yes.
Yeah. I'm intrigued
yes.
by the white lady.
I will happily tell you about her. So she is seen, for the most part, she's seen on Sea Wing, but she has been seen all the way around the prison as well. She's been seen during the day. She's been seen during the night. And basically her story was that she was arrested and brought to the prison for murdering her fiancé, or being accused of murdering her fiancé. We don't know if she did it or not.
Yeah, wow.
And she was absolutely heartbroken, and she was sentenced to execution, and her final request was that she wanted to be able to wear her wedding dress. So her wedding dress was brought in, she put it on, and the following morning, when they went to go and collect her to take her up for her execution, because at that time executions were done up in town, they opened the door to her cell and they found her just lying dead in there. There weren't any marks on her body to suggest that she'd done anything to herself, and she hadn't come in with a disease or anything, so she wasn't sick or poorly and died that way. She just passed away overnight. And of course, nowadays we've heard of broken heart syndrome, so whether that played a part, we don't know. But she has kind of haunted the prison ever since, really, and she's one of those stories where prisoners and prison officers have experienced her, if you like. They've seen her standing on the stairs. Some of the inmates have said how they've woken up in the middle of the night feeling as though someone's sitting on their chest, or there are hands around her throat. Their throat, sorry.
Gosh. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had several reports come to me from guests visiting the prison nowadays about having seen this lady in a white dress standing on the stairs, be it in C Wing or B Wing. She's been seen on A Wing as well. So she's seen, like I said, all around the prison. Generally, I believe she's seen more often during the winter months. So whether that's kind of the time of year when all this went on originally, because this story dates right the way back to the Victorian times.
Have you ever been able to sort of research and find out her name or anything like that and pieced it together? I suppose that would be really difficult, wouldn't it?
It would be really difficult because she was never actually executed, so there's no record of her execution.
Right, okay.
It's always interesting though, because obviously with investigators coming into the prison and that, they'll sometimes offer up a name, but the name does change depending on who comes to you and speaks to you and what they've come up with. So we're not really sure on what her name was.
And I need to ask you as well, have you ever seen anything yourself, as in a ghost or spirit, whilst you've been working there?
I haven't seen anything because I'm generally just not sensitive that way, but I have definitely heard things. I've definitely felt things, both physically and emotionally. So I have had my own experiences in the prison, which is amazing.
And have you ever smelt any sort of perfume or anything? The reason I've asked, obviously, is with the white lady, I was reading that sometimes they can smell like a perfume smell that comes along with her as well. And, throughout history, there's been numerous accounts of ghostly scents alongside paranormal encounters. I think in a lot of places I've been, lavender seems to be a sort of frequently reported at haunted locations alongside the sighting of a ghost. So I was just wondering if you ever smelt perfume in the prison?
I've never smelt perfume in the prison. I've smelt fire. So that was an interesting one because we literally thought something was on fire. But I haven't smelt perfume, no.
I was just wondering as well, because you touched on this earlier about setting up stuff for Halloween and stuff. And my question to you was going to be, do you have a rising interest in ghost hunts at Halloween? Which I think I know the answer anyway to that one.
Yes, definitely. We have our little things that we do at the prison. So we run ghost tours on a weekly basis, and throughout October, we've added a few surprises to the ghost tour. That's all I'm going to say about that because I wouldn't want to spoil it for anybody. But it is a little bit more intense, perhaps, than the ghost tours that we run at other times in the year. And we're coming up with a photo opportunity as well, like a little spooky corner of the prison. You can take your photo there.
And what's your sort of thoughts on what people are seeing? I mean, you said yourself that you haven't seen anything, so what do you believe people and visitors are seeing at the prison?
The reports vary. Obviously, we get a lot of people saying that they've seen orbs and that. And actually, while I think about it, while I haven't seen anything like sort of as in a figure standing there, I do know personally of like people that I know personally who have, as well as guests coming up to me saying that they've seen figs and that. I do actually remember once taking a group around and we were pitch black in B wing, and there was this bright little light that seemed to float straight towards us, turn around, and then wiggle off. So that's the only thing that I've ever seen at the prison. It was still amazing though. That was, I love that. I'd actually completely forgotten about that, to be honest.
And a group,
because I'm very much sort of, I don't see things, and so I forget about that little one.
And it was you and a group that actually saw it all together. You all saw it.
We all saw it. Yes.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was amazing. And it wasn't like, because there is sometimes this confusion between dust and actual orbs and that. We were standing there. It wasn't dust. It definitely wasn't dust.
Especially seeing it with the naked eye, because normally the dust and the flies that are caught on camera is in night vision and it's just the lens reflecting, as you know. But to see it with the naked eye, that's really impressive.
Yeah, it was a bright little light, I'll tell you that.
What would you say is the most active part of the prison for you?
My answer is always, whenever anybody asks me this, is it depends on who you ask, because it depends on where we've personally had our experiences. So for me personally, it's C wing, but I know if you ask a lot of staff, they will say A wing. They could say the old gate lodge. Some people say the infirmary. I mean, I personally have never had anything happen to me up in the infirmary at all. So it's all very sort of personal, really. As to where you'd be told the most haunted part of the prison is. I would probably say that most of the staff would tell you A wing. So I'm probably in the minority with my C wing, but that's fine.
Have you ever considered writing a book on the prison and the ghosts?
I haven't, but I think that could be quite an interesting thing to do. We're about to start, it's in our plans to run our own paranormals. Currently we get a lot of paranormal groups. They hire the site and they come in. So one of our plans is definitely to get our own up and running. And as part of that, I've got plans within that to collate the information that comes in from those. And you never know, perhaps something could come of that and I could end up writing a book. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a natural author necessarily, but it's possible. It might happen.
Yeah, I think so. I think your love of history and what you're witnessing, and like you've mentioned, you've had like prison officers come to you and visitors and stuff. That would be really, really interesting, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
And have you ever stayed the night on your own due to work, or have you been part of a group and actually stayed on your own in any part of it at all, the prison?
I have been on site by myself, locking up after an event or something like that. I have stayed the full night, but it was part of a night event, although I did sleep in a cell separate to everyone else. So I have spent the night there, and not necessarily the whole night by myself because, insurance reasons and all that lot. That's just not something that we do, and there wouldn't be a reason for it. But, if you're looking after an event and the group goes home, then obviously you've got to lock the prison up at whatever hour it might be. So I've done a few of those.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about visually seeing ghosts and stuff. Do you ever hear any noises and I guess some things that you just can't explain, noises that are coming from nowhere, or there's no one around and noises are happening?
Yes, I've had a few of those. I have had my name whispered on C Wing. I thought someone was hiding around the corner trying to jump out on me or scare me, and then I remembered that there wasn't anybody there. The morning after the Queen died, so I remember obviously the news broke that she'd passed away, and I went round that evening and just said to whatever's there, by the way, just to let you know. And then the following morning I was unlocking the site, and I could very distinctly hear someone humming the national anthem. There were only a couple of other people on site because this was before we'd opened. One of them was over the other side of the prison, and the other one was down in her office. And I asked both of them, I was like, have you been humming this? And they said no. And then perhaps my most recent experience, so this happened earlier this year, was I was locking up the prison. I was the only person on site. And I went to the oldest part of the prison, and as I was just turning off lights and turning off voice boxes and things, someone kicked over a bucket and apologized.
Someone kicked over a bucket and apologized. What you heard? So you heard the audio of it, but there was no one there.
So what I heard sounded like it came from just outside the room. It was very, very clear. And so I rushed out the room because I thought, oh my goodness, someone's on site, either a guest, or I actually thought the maintenance guy might have stayed behind for some reason. I ended up checking the entire building, looking for someone, and there was absolutely no one there. There was no one on site.
That must have been terrifying.
It wasn't. I loved it.
You loved that? Oh my God.
I'm one of those weird people. I love it when something happens.
So like you said, you've not actually seen anything, but you've had lots of sort of very strange encounters with stuff. What do you think? Do you personally, in your heart, do you believe that's ex-prisoners or people from the past, or do you believe in the stone tape theory that it's just a replay? So much torment.
Yeah, I'm quite open to that. Why would I hear someone kick over a bucket and say sorry? That is more of a stone tape type of thing, I believe. And then we've had other reports happen within the prison which would highly suggest that it's a stone tape encounter, as well as maybe something more intelligent going on there. When I know of things that have happened to me, and then someone else comes in who knows nothing about the prison, nothing about the hauntings, nothing about what I've experienced, and then come up to me and say, does this mean anything to you? And I'm like, where did you experience this? And then they'll tell me, and I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what that is, and I haven't told anybody about that. So that's really interesting that you would even come up with that kind of information.
Do you ever get seances and Ouija boards and do everyone, are people allowed to do what they want on a ghost hunt, or is there restrictions?
No, they can do what they want within, obviously, the paranormal group that is hosting the event, obviously within their own set of rules. But no, it's absolutely fine to do Ouija boards and things like that in the prison. I've done it many times.
And has anything happened?
Nothing bad. Nothing bad. I would say one of the more interesting things that happened was that the board once said to me, go away, or just the group that I was in and said, go away. And we were like, that's fine, we'll go away. Because, it's their space, and if they don't want us there, they don't want us there. And we closed the board down, and just as we closed it down, a door slammed from the other end of the wing, one of the cell doors. And honestly, everybody went from quite spaced around the wing to huddled in a corner, absolutely terrified. And I thought it was really amusing.
And does this happen quite a lot, like doors slamming and keys clanking and that kind of classic Hammer horror kind of ghosts?
You have to be a little bit careful, because obviously the wind can make the doors close, and some people might mistake that for paranormal activity, but it does happen sort of independently of that. Again, I investigated there, and I was investigating with a friend, and he asked if the spirits would shut a door, and he literally counted to 3, and on the count of 3 the door slammed.
That's really impressive evidence. And has anyone ever caught anything on camera or photographs in the prison that you've ever seen?
Yes, I've seen a few photos. It's generally from guests. They will catch something on their cameras, and then they will send them to us. And we get the whole variety of things where perhaps maybe they don't know the site, and what they've taken a photo of is perhaps a door in the distance that's open. I mean, because it's dark, they just don't know the door's there. But then we also have had photos of literally like a black shadow of a person standing in the middle of the wing, and you can quite clearly tell that it's not a human, it's not a living person.
Wow. And are you all set up now, ready for Halloween?
Yes, so we started our tours. They're all up and running now, our little special extra tours. And the grotto that we've got, I call it a grotto, our little sort of spooky corner, is going to be up and running for the half-term holidays. And then for the kids, we've also got a little trick-or-treat trail. See if they can find some little, witches' hats and broomsticks and stuff around the prison. So we're getting all that up and running for half-term holiday.
That sounds really, really, really good. I would love to attend something like that. It's, especially like as a child, I was always fascinated by the paranormal, and I've mentioned before on previous podcasts that I used to love the school library where we'd sit and look at the old Osborne World of Ghosts or Book of Ghosts or something like that, and I'd be fascinated by the pictures. And there was one particular one, and it was the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane I think it was, and there was this figure stood up in the upper circle, and you could see right through him, and he had a funny hat on it, and it was just, you could see the seats behind him. And it was back in the day before software where you can manipulate pictures and stuff, so it terrified me. And you'd never have the book to own, and then the next day when you're in school, you'd go back to show your friends what you had seen, and they were like, nah, it's fake. And it's like, no, it's real. So I've always been interested in the paranormal, and as I got older I started doing ghost hunts. Then we had a TV series that we'd go to alleged haunted locations and stuff. So I find it all fascinating. I still haven't actually seen a ghost. I've had, very similar to you, I've seen and heard things. I've had my head sort of touched. We've had stones being thrown at us. But no, I've never seen a headless horseman or someone walking down the corridor with a ball and chain. So that would be my dream.
Yeah, I think mine would be the same as well. And I'm quite similar to you in that I've had an interest in the paranormal for so long, but obviously when it's just you as a teenager or something, you kind of keep it to yourself a little bit. It really wasn't until I worked at the prison, or I started just, even when I was there as a guest before I started working there, that I actually had the ability to go on a paranormal event, my first ever one. I just fell in love with it completely, and my love of the paranormal has just sort of exploded since then.
Yeah, and I think I love watching paranormal shows and stuff, but for me it's separating fact from fiction. There's a lot of shows out there that are totally fake, some of them that perhaps started out with good intentions, and because nothing was happening they had to enhance it a little bit and start making things up, which kind of ruined the credibility.
Yeah.
But I do love the whole ghost hunting, and I wish I had more time to do some more investigations and stuff. But Shepton Mallet Prison sounds really good. It sounds like it's absolutely rammed full of ghosts. On that note, going back to the ghosts, what else are people seeing there? Because obviously we've mentioned the White Lady, but did you have any other sort of stories you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, so we have a character that we call Bob. That's just the name that we give him. He tends to be associated with the old gatekeeper's lodge. And he has a tendency to stroke people's hair and throw little stones at people. And I believe there's actually a video in existence somewhere of someone setting up some equipment, and you can actually see the lid of her, so the top of her canvas camera case, actually lift up and flip right over, and she's nowhere near it.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's one that's about. We always tell people when they go into the old gatekeeper's lodge, like, oh, go up and say hello to Bob. And then there are occasions where children have been seen. And then we've got a night watchman as well. He's occasionally seen over the on the overnights. So he's obviously specifically seen at night. So we, like I say, we have our regulars for sure.
Do you ever get people finding certain areas of the prison full of such a negative energy that they can't go in the area?
Definitely. We will get people who come up to us and say, oh, I got to this cell and I couldn't physically make myself walk inside it. Or they go into a certain part of the prison and go, I just had to leave. I felt sick. I didn't want to be in there. And we also get people saying that their dogs as well will freak out in a certain area or won't go into a certain cell, which is really interesting because obviously they have that sort of, that ability to sense things that we can't perceive with our own senses.
Yeah, I hear it's cats, dogs and horses that seem to have a really good sixth sense.
Yes, I believe that's the case. I didn't know about the horses, but certainly knew about the cats and dogs.
Yeah, it's something I read a long time ago, and I've seen on quite a few documentaries. I mean, I've never put the horse to the test, but I've certainly seen a lot of videos with cats staring at something, and dogs seem to react, and they won't go in certain areas, and they get very sort of upset, and they shy away from the area. But that's interesting. It's good that if you've got an animal, like you say, a dog that's reacting as well as like a human, that's really interesting because that gives it a lot of credibility, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because obviously we can't control how the dog reacts to something. Dogs don't lie, they just react to what's there. So they're not swayed by, say they've heard about the White Lady and they come in with the preconception they're going to meet the White Lady, and then they get into a certain area of the prison, they're just like, oh my goodness, that could be the White Lady. They're not influenced by anything like that. They just react to what they can see and smell.
I find the whole idea of the place really, really creepy, really spooky. There's a lot of haunted prisons. I think it is, I mean, my personal belief, it is to do with the negative energy that's been left behind, ingrained in the building. And you've got like Bodmin Jail as well. Have you ever been to any other of the prisons, the haunted ones?
I've been to Dorchester Prison. That was really interesting because I didn't know about its history. I don't tend to, whenever I go investigating, I don't tend to look too much into the historical side of things because I don't want to have that influence in my head. And I went there, and my goodness, I walked into that place and went, I don't like this place. This feels really, really oppressive. It just feels like a nasty place, like bad things happened at that prison. And then it was only later on, after I'd done the investigation, that I read, and I believe it was bottom of the performing prisons list at one stage in its existence or something.
Right.
So yes, I've been to that one. I've been to Gloucester, and I've been to Shrewsbury as well.
Have you ever been to Little Dean Jail in Gloucester?
No, I haven't.
I find that really active, and it's like a crime through time museum nowadays, and a lot of really good. I wouldn't call it memorabilia, but like torture devices and knuckle dusters, and I think the knuckle dusters were once used by the Cray twins. Loads of really strange artifacts there, but the actual prison wing, we had so much sort of activity happening, including like what you mentioned happening at Shepton Mallet Prison. There was a big heavy prison door that we heard slam. We had some infrared motion sensors set up in one of the cells, and we had that go off, even though we put them up high to stop any sort of, in case there was any rodents or anything triggering it. And it went off to, I think, to us asking if there was someone here, and we had locked the cell off, and it just went off on its own. It's really, and I think all of us on that investigation got really ill. Like the next day, we felt really drained, and our energy levels, and just it didn't feel right there. It's a really, really weird place. If you ever get a chance, you should go.
Oh yeah, it's on the bucket list now, definitely.
And like I said, for the history of it, it's fantastic. I've never seen anything like it. Honestly, it's a really good location. But going back to your prison, how do people book the place up for tours? Is there a website?
So yeah, we have our own website, and we have everything listed on there that you can do. So we have self-guided tours, guided tours, escape rooms. We have the ability to do hens and stags and things, and then we have during sort of the in-season between April and October, we do our own overnight stays. They're not specifically for paranormal investigations, but ghost hunters are more than welcome to turn up and go on those. And that's kind of a 12-hour event where you investigate the prison. You can wander around the prison all night, or go to bed, or do a bit of ghost hunting if you fancy it. So those are always busy, those ones.
Honestly, I could be talking to you all evening and not get bored. I love history, I love the paranormal, so it's been absolute privilege having you on the show. Thank you so much, Jenny. It's been amazing.
Oh, that's okay. You're more than welcome.
And have an amazing Halloween, and I hope everything goes well and it's as popular as ever. Has this been happening every year, or is it a recent thing?
We're definitely a popular destination to go to at Halloween, so we've always had to stick on extra ghost tours, and the paranormal groups as well. I do believe, without looking at the diary, I couldn't tell you for certain, but I do believe groups have already booked us up for next Halloween. So we are definitely on people's list to visit during the Halloween season.
Will you actually be in the prison during Halloween night?
I'm not sure at the moment. I probably will be around though, I imagine.
I was just wondering, Jenny, have you ever taken anything home with you? So you've done a ghost hunt, nothing's really happened at the prison, but then you've gone home the following morning and something's happened?
Only during lockdown. And I just think they got bored, to be honest, because the site was empty. No one was visiting, and I was allowed to go in there and check on the site. And then I went home, and the house I lived in at the time was very quiet. It never creaked or groaned or anything like that. And just for a couple of days, I noticed that there was definitely a lot more sort of thudding going on around the place, and it was fine. I said, "That's fine. You can have a wander around and a nosy about for a couple of days, but the next time I go back to the prison, you have to come with me. You can't stay here for the whole of lockdown." And a couple of days later, I ended up going back in again to check on the prison and make sure it was still standing and everything. And I went home again, and the house was quiet again.
That's really weird. Really weird.
I think it was just boredom, they're so used to people visiting the site and that. And obviously, if I'm one of only two people also going and visiting for months at a time just to check on the site, I'd get a bit bored, to be honest. I got a bit bored during lockdown,
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people did. I think I've never started so many hobbies.
Yes, I definitely picked up a few weird hobbies that I don't know where they came from, and I dropped them the moment lockdown ended. But yeah, no, it was never anything malicious. And like I say, that was literally, I think, the only occasion where it happened, and I can sort of understand why it happened at that point as well.
Have you ever had any nightmares from, like, you've done a ghost hunt and then you've started having really bad nightmares? Because that's a lot of ghost hunts and involvement with paranormal stuff that you do almost on a daily basis, by the sound of it.
No, I've never had a nightmare after doing any kind of investigation or experiencing anything at the prison or anywhere else. I've never gone home and had nightmares.
You're very, very lucky then. We
I'll be careful though. I've got an investigation coming up that I'm doing. I'll probably end up with nightmares after that one now.
yeah, you touch wood and everything, but no, I used to get terrible stuff, and I don't know about you, but when you're in the middle of an investigation, it's like 2 o'clock and your body starts getting really tired and stuff. You start seeing little tricks of light and hearing funny noises, and I think some of it is just your body just so run down and tired. And I've had the corner of the eye phenomena quite a few times where you're convinced you've seen something, and it's horrible, and that's without being at a haunted location.
Yeah, I'm very kind of careful with the way I investigate. I always, while I do believe stuff is out there and stuff is communicating with us, I'm always very right. Try and explain it logically first, and then if I can't, very interesting sort of thing. But yeah, I'm aware of when you are just sort of standing in the dark and then you start seeing little dots of light and stuff like that. You're like, now is that just my eyes? My eyes are just creating a little bit of light rather than it actually being anything.
Amazing. I'm going to let you enjoy your evening then. I'm going to wrang this off, but thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
That's okay. It's not a problem.
All right, you take care and I'll speak to you soon.
Yep. Okie dokie.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.